did Lost and Found come about?
Lost and Found got started about December 2015 when I got the stories from Christos and Dean and Stella and TJ. They all were around about the same thing, about relationships. So I took those stories and wrote the screenplay around those stories. We workshopped that a few times, had a few readings, and that's basically how it started.
Did you experience any difficulties during the casting process?
Casting was probably one of the most difficult parts of the whole process. Not in the fact that we needed to find the right people, it was just that we had so many people to choose from. I think we ended up auditioning around 64 or 65 people over two days initially, but then we had an extra couple of days tagged in later on. Dean Netherwood did a great job of organising it. That was Dean's role, to coordinate all the people that wanted to audition and getting them into their slots. It was after that we'd chosen the people that some of the difficulty came, because around the same time we were filming, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was on at the Pilbeam, and a number of the people that we wanted in the cast were also in Chitty, so we had to swap roles around to suit their availability.
How did you go about getting crew for a project like Lost and Found?
Look, I think for me the most important part of the whole process was getting the right crew. I already knew that I wanted Clifton as the DOP or the cinematographer. The only issue I had with there was that he was only available for the first week of shooting initially. So that was going to be a bit of a challenge. So I had Elizabeth, our B camera operator, was teed up to take on that role for the second week. But then luckily Clifton managed to get some leave from work, and he stayed on for the whole 2 weeks, which was great.
Well, the DOP is in control of anything to do with the cameras and the lighting. So basically, they're the ones in control of the framing, the way the camera moves throughout the shot, which also has a handoff effect on the blocking of the actors sometimes too. That's normally left to the director, but the DOP does have some influence on that. So basically, the whole mood and the feel of what you're seeing on screen is coming from the DOP in regards to obviously the lighting and the cameras.
The director of photography has a significant impact on look and feel of the film. So how did you approach this film with Clifton?
I think there's the relationship between the director and the director of photography always has to be a close one. And Clifton and I have worked together for several years on different projects. And you know, early on in the piece, he and I discussed what sort of feel we wanted for the film, how it was going to play out. I drew up a very comprehensive shot list, and if we'd stuck to my shot list, I think, you know, a year and a half later we'd still be filming. So Clifton came up with the whole look and feel of the film through using the stabilizer, the Ronin, and the Easy Rig, and getting the nice flowing shots that we got.
Three shots would get combined into one. Just you would start here and move across and then go to there, and that would sort of, instead of having to do 3 locked off shots of that, you just get it all in one shot. So it became a real time-saving thing to do, and it looks great. Like it sort of became, I guess, the cinematic style of the movie.
I mean, the whole Gazelle run will go down in the annals of history. That was such an amazing shot of Tony running along the river.
Well, I tried to get work experience sort of in maybe like the advertising or the television industry, but that didn't work. And then I found Ian, and then it sort of all just came together, and it was awesome. It was probably like the best thing I've done, sort of just messaging Ian and saying, hey, you know, you got any work that I could just jump in on, and then it turned into a whole feature film. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, I never expected myself to be able to actually work on a film, like a proper film set in Rockhampton. I was kind of, the way I stumbled across Blue Eagle Productions and the Lost and Found kind of movie was I actually came to a workshop that Ian and Clifton put on. and I was just trying. I was a young filmmaker trying to absorb as much information as I could, so that when I moved to the big city, I kind of had a step ahead. So I was kind of thinking like, I'll just kind of get what I can get now, and then I'll move, and then I'll work on stuff later. But then that led into this, and it's like, my goodness, I'm actually doing something in Rockhampton.
It's awesome.
But yeah, I never expected to work on something this big while I was still in Rockhampton. So it's been awesome.
And still in school too.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
Yes, you know, it's been a dream of mine for a very long time. Like watching Lord of the Rings when I was a lot younger, I always sort of looked at the costumes and how they, like even before working on a film or studying it, I was always looking at scenes like how do they do that. I always wanted to know how they were doing these things. So it's sort of been since I was very little wanted to do this. So
the crew were amazing, and I can't thank the crew and especially their families enough. And the reason I say their families is a lot of the crew were young students still at school. Some lived in Yeppoon, and their parents had to drive them to the set first thing in the morning, and sometimes come back and pick them up, you know, very late in the evening, sometimes midnight. So you know, the family of the crew get a special thanks. As for the crew themselves, look, they did an amazing job. I could not have asked for a better group of people to work on the film. You know, young, inexperienced people in the main, and they really stepped up to the mark, so it was great.
Tell me about hair and makeup.
As you can tell, I've never had much to do with hair, and probably makeup for that matter. I'd worked with Narelle on Dominoes before, and so she was the obvious person to come in and do makeup.
So we looked at the characters and we worked out what look they were going to have, and then kept it consistent through all of the days that we did shooting. I was so lucky. I had two very lovely young ladies, Renee and Caitlin, and they came along and did some training with Chrissy and I at her salon, and I taught them the quickest way to get a face on for film. You use a lot of different makeup when you're shooting film as to normal day wear makeup. So you really want to make sure that the camera shows the artist looking at their very best.
The soundtrack for Lost and Found is amazing. How did that come about?
One of the probably the weakest points in filmmaking for me has been music. I had some songs from Sophie Rose that I knew I wanted to use, and I knew where I was going to use them. Rest of the music, I was really a little clueless. And again, Narelle, as multi-talented as she is, she put her hand up and said, "Hey, how about I write the score for it?"
He came into my studio and I said, "Do you like this? Do you think this would be okay for the film?" And I played him a piece of music, and he said, "I really like that." And I said, "Well, here's a couple more," and I played them. "I like that too." "Oh, gee, I like that one too." And I said, "Well, you know, if you need some more music for the film, if these are appropriate, I'm happy to work them out, finish them off and record them for you." It's a very emotional film. Like, there's a lot of funny moments, yes, but there's a lot of emotion, whether it be anger or frustration, or whether it be sheer terror, fear, a fear of even speaking to somebody. And the music that flows through those things has to represent that heartfelt emotion. There's an amazing scene where there's this beautiful girl standing in a window, and she's looking down at this young man leaning on a post who's looking up at her. And they have a theme because it's sort of sad but hopeful all at the same time. So the piano music kind of just went beautifully just for that.
The first assistant director is a challenging job. Who did you have in that position?
Marnie did an amazing job as a first AD. Again, her and I worked together on Dominoes, so we both knew what to expect of each other. So she, you know, kept the whole juggernaut flowing and kept it going. As a director, you need to have someone to be doing or keeping an eye on the operational side of things. You know, the director looks at the big picture, whereas the first AD looks at the little things and gets the operational things right. Make sure that the cast are there doing the right thing, the crew are there doing the right thing, making sure the costumes are right.
Honestly, didn't know what to expect being a feature film. I've done short films before from a directing and acting standpoint. So I did expect it to be different. and I did expect it to be full on, which it was. So I guess I expected it to be that level, but there was so much more that went into it than what I knew there would be. Like with just the crew and what the actors put in as well, there was so much more to it. And I recommend anyone who's going into film, whether if you're an actor, do behind the scenes, because you see so much more and you appreciate the crew. Oh my God, cherish your crew, treat them right. Please, 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 because they are the glue that keeps everything together and makes it. So everyone has been so behind this film, whether it's the people that are in it or people in the community. Feedback has been brilliant from the get-go for it. Just the drive, like, this is Rocky. We need more of this. So everyone wanted it, and this is what they're gonna get.